So like who's some of the people that you were looking up to as far as like an on an influential level?
Like
it could be like music wise or with the skating, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Shit, man. Definitely the master, George Clinton. You know, like Parliament Funkadelic. I think I've always been fond of Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton, because he did what the fuck he wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He did music how he wanted, within no restraints at the time, but people still moved.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's one of my greatest goals. Is like, yo, if I get to play real music, but get to see girls twerking and dancing, you know what I mean? Like, it's fire, because it could be fire. You could do the most fire solo, you know, most fire verse, move the whole crowd. But if the girl's not dancing, then, you know, it's like, all right, you did a great show. But at the same time, like, shit wasn't vibing. But at the same time, you could have the motherfuckers twerking and saying shit like that, but you're not really doing nothing out there. So I think, like, that's the medium. I think George Clinton achieved that. Always Jimmy, man. Always Prince. Always Michael, you know. Shit. I think James Brown, yes, but and Chuck Berry, yo. Shout out to Chuck Berry, man. That's the king of rock and roll.
You know what was it like you know, being in the birthplace of hip hop and like actually, you know, witnessing everything firsthand, like, you know, opposed to somebody like, you know, being in the South, like,
Yeah.
we kind of disconnect and we connect with it on an entrepreneurial, you know what I'm saying, standpoint, but not really the culture wise. Like, so what were some of the things that you remember seeing, like, coming up, like it could be cyphers or anything?
Well, I think what was chill about it is, like, a lot of the people that became like rappers in the beginning, like, they weren't actors. And when I say that, I don't mean that in any like disrespect to any artist today, but I think that that's something like if you think about it, I'm not saying this at all, but Pac, as an artist, Pac was an actor. You know what I mean? He did like many forms of art, so I think he was able to portray that in his branding and his artistry on the track as well. And I look in today's retrospect and, like, I think about Drake, for instance, highly successful. I'm not saying he isn't anything he claims to be, but I also think about the fact he's an artist and he's an actor, and he's able to portray that, you know, like he was in Degrassi and shit. So the reason I bring that up is in Brooklyn, it was interesting because a lot of, like, even the Wu-Tang Clan and shit like that, like, I didn't necessarily get to witness that, but I would see, like, Marky Mark, not Marky Mark, what the fuck am I talking about? That's but Biz Markie, I see him in Queens, and, like, when I would go I live in Lafayette City for a little bit, I see him in the elevator, and, like, you know, these people were real in the retrospective. Like, they were living a lot of shit they talked about. And I think that's another thing that I see in the South. Like, even though you say it's like from an entrepreneurial, like the culture, like I feel like at the same time a lot of the South rappers are living, like, not a lot, but the ones that we, you know, ones we know for fact are, like, you know, they came from similar positions, and I think that brings out the best artists because it brings out the struggle, you know.
Well, when did you first realize that you know, you were gonna move to the South, and like what was that like?
I mean, it wasn't too wild. I mean, even though I lived most of my life up in New York. My mom was in the military, so there was one point where I moved around. So I lived in, like, Florida at one point. I lived in Duval County. Lived in North Carolina, South Carolina. You know what I mean? I even lived in St. Croix at one point. But so it wasn't too crazy to move because I had adjusted to, like, you know, like, moving to different areas already. So when I came down, it was like, yo, I'm gonna come down and do music. I really didn't think anything of it, you know. And I think it was fire because it was a little 3-year period actually where we left the South, and when we were touring, me and Alexander Rath, my bandmate, shout out to Rath, man, check him out, Rathworks. We went up there for about 3 years and just like toured, played music, and then the South came out when I went up there, and that's what was so crazy. In my riffs and what I was writing, everything that I absorbed here came out there. So I think when I came down here, I was bringing a lot of flavor from New York. And then when I went back up to New York for a little minute, I was bringing a lot of flavor from the South. And then we came back down, and I think that's when the fusion happened. So, no, it wasn't nothing, man. Shout out. I fuck with it, honestly. The only thing I didn't like, I couldn't get alcohol on Sundays when I first moved here. That shit was crazy, bro.
Yeah. Well, like besides that, like what were some of the adjustments that you had to make, like, you know what I'm saying, coming from up there?
Yo, you gotta get a car. That's for facts. Living in New York, you know, it's just like take the train, take the taxi, and out. And like, even with the evolution of Uber, that shit is like, you know, easy peasy. Here, like, nah, Uber, I mean, it's cool, but it's not sustainable. I use Uber when I party in Atlanta. That's about it. Yeah.
Get me out of here. I got a bird on the grove. I put a bird on the stove. She got me a rap in the stove. She like that I rap and I smoke. We match like Tonic and